May we also hear a brief message from the distinguished Senate President, the Honorable Clean and
His Excellency President Benigno Aquino III, Speaker for Belmonte Jr., and the distinguished members of the House of Representatives, my colleagues in the Senate, Senator Aquino, Senator Cynthia Villar, Senator Soto, Executive Secretary Ochoa, and the members of the Cabinet, Governor O'Malley, Mayor Bautista, the members of the Joint Foreign Chambers, the members of the business sector, fellow workers in ladies and gentlemen, a pleasant good morning to all of you. A year from now, when history is written, the reforms that the Aquino administration put in place will certainly be highlighted. President Benigno Aquino, in 2010, assumed the presidency on the of good governance. And for the past 5 years, the Philippines has supported the reform agenda of this administration. Congress, for all our shortcomings, did its share in enacting laws to liberalize our investment climate, level the playing field, strengthen the rule of law, among others. This opportunity, Mr. President, to briefly highlight some of the laws that we enacted during this administration in support of. To start with, Mr. President, for the past 5 years, we passed the national budget on time. It helped our economic team plan well and with certainty and transparency. In contrast, the past administration made sure that it always operated on a real budget, so that the General Appropriations Act became a huge piggy bank for Malacanang. The GOCC Governance Act, which I wrote, made state-owned enterprises instruments of national progress instead of being millionaires. In 2013, 28 billion in dividends were remitted to the national coffers by 38 GOCCs and 32.3 billion from 50 GOCCs last year. We authorized the full entry of foreign banks by allowing them to occupy 1% of the voting stock of a domestic bank. We also allowed foreign investors to own 60% of the voting stock in rural banks. Republic Act 10378 exempted foreign carriers from paying on a reciprocity basis the 3% common carriers and value-added tax for the transport of passengers, and allows them to avail of the exemption from the 2.5% gross Philippine biddings tax on gross revenue. We also revised the insurance code, which now imposes more stringent capitalization requirements to make the insurance industry stronger and more resilient to shocks. The reproductive health law was one of the most reform measures enacted by Congress. The law provides access to medically safe, effective, legal, affordable, and quality reproductive health services, supplies, and relevant information and education according to the priority needs of women, children, and other underprivileged sector. The sin tax reform law, for decades, excise taxes were eschewed in favor of certain brands. It was an playing field. We sponsored this reform measure in the Senate, and with the passage into law, excise tax on tobacco amounted to 70.4 billion in 2000, for an increase of 41.8 billion. We enacted amendments to the anti-money laundering law to expand the list of entities required to be covered and suspicious transactions to the Anti-Money Laundering Council, and to allow freeze orders and inquiries on bank deposits or properties upon the order of a court based on an ex parte petition by LC. Republic Act 10660 amended the Sandigan Bayan Law by creating 2 more divisions, modified its jurisdiction by transferring minor cases to the regional trial courts, and other reforms in the trial of graft cases, which hopefully can speed up their resolution. We also raised the tax exemption rates for the 13th month pay under Republic Act 10653 from 30,000 pesos, which was pegged to 1992 prices, to 82,000 pesos to restore purchasing, which had been diminished. Today, Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, we stand witness once again to another milestone, the signing of 2 landmark measures, the Philippine Competition Act and the amendments to the Cabotage Law. It took more than 2 decades since the 8th Congress for Congress an encompassing competition. The campaign against and combinations in the strength of trade has been hampered by the inadequate Article 186 of the revised Penal Code, passed 85 years ago. And for the longest, the Philippines is the only original member of the ASEAN without an antitrust law. That will change today, Mr. President, with your signing of the Philippine Competition Act, principally authored in the Senate by Senator Aquino. We now finally have a competition policy that outlaws and penalizes anti-competitive agreements, abuse of dominant position, and anti-competitive and acquisitions. Mr. President, in your Excellency's State of the Nation Address 2013, you asked Congress to quote a Cabotage law in foster greater competition and lower the cost of transportation, our agricultural sector and other industries. Mr. President, it took us years, we in Congress, now Your Excellency's approval, an act allowing foreign vessels to transport and co-load foreign cargoes for domestic transshipment. Again in the Senate, we must acknowledge Senator Aquino, who started the passage of this landmark legislation. The amendments to the Cabotage law will now allow foreign vessels to call at multiple ports and enable importers and exporters to co-load containers and cargoes in foreign ships going in and out of the Philippines. Liberalizing twice trading opens the market to competition, brings down costs of transportation by sea, and enables the country to fully utilize the supply chains for products. More than 2 decades, we have been past these measures. It is only now in the Congress, with the reform-driven leadership of the President, we finally enacted these laws. Mr. President, we also wish to put on record that the cooperation between the House and the Senate has never been more intense several years, with the Speaker and myself sitting down to review all the laws and policies that we should enact. This shows, Mr. that many challenges in governance can be addressed by a healthy working relationship between the 2 houses of Congress and by a strong political will, principled leadership which have been the hallmark of Your Excellency's administration. With the signing of these 2 laws, we can say that the Philippines is now better equipped to face the challenges of the future. Let me by emphasizing that the Philippine Senate and your Philippine Congress, Mr. President, is committed to institutionalize a culture of accountability and transparency. Our people have recognized that good governance pays high dividends. The active and meaningful participation of our people in the life of the nation, as well as their and zealousness in protecting our game, will ensure the continuity of reforms and the agenda of the Aquino administration. Thank you very much. Good morning.
Thank you very much, Mr. Senate President.